What's up, guys? UFC 277 just wrapped up and it delivered. It was actually a pretty good card. A lot of finishes on the main card, a bit of decisions on the prelims and early prelims, but overall really good fights throughout. I did pretty well on the predictions. I almost got every single fight correct. The only one I got wrong was the Hamdi versus Mays fight, but I did mention if Hamdi wrestles, he should get the win. But he also got a knockdown, which is actually pretty crazy. So let's talk about that main event. Amanda Nunes defeats Julianna Pena, reclaiming her title, becoming a two-time double champion, the first in history. And she's just furthering herself as the greatest female fighter of all time. She holds that status very strong, and it's going to be so difficult for anybody to reach that. Do you know what the Nunes and Pena fights reminded me of? The GSP and Matt Serra fights. Pena and Matt Serra were both winners of the Ultimate Fighter. They eventually fought the dominant champion and got a big upset nobody expected to happen. Early finishes in both those fights. The former champions change gyms, make adjustments, and come out with a new strategy and washes them. Makes it seem like the first one was a complete fluke. GSP and Amanda Nunes, also the greatest male fighter and the greatest female fighter, seemingly have the same chapter in both their careers. Man, she was blasting Julianna Pena all over the place. I mean, her right hand was enchanted by magic. That one right hook while her back was like close to the fence, she sent Pena airborne with a right hook. It was something out of like a pre-USADA Johnny Hendricks fight. And I do see a lot of people are talking about Julianna Pena's form in her boxing. A lot of people are talking down on it. The funniest thing I saw was someone that said that Julianna Pena fights like she's dry swimming at her opponent. But the thing is, Pena always fought this way. She's never changed up the way she strikes. She hasn't even really changed up the way she grapples. She's become a very stagnant fighter throughout her career. And I don't know if that's because of motherhood, she has so much focus on that. I don't really know what it is, but if you watch the entirety of her career, she's always fought this way. The only thing that got a little bit better is her decision making, I guess, maybe. Because remember, she didn't just lose to Amanda Nunes, she got submitted by Shevchenko, she got submitted by Jermaine Durandamy. When her opponents are on point, she seems like a tier below them. Maybe you can have a competitive fight with someone like Aldana or Holly Holm, perhaps Caitlin Vieira, that kind of competition level. But ultimately, at the end of the day, her toughness could not get her through this one. Amanda Nunes was just clearly the better fighter. And I also have to say, I can now kind of see the 50-43 scorecard. Getting 5 knockdowns in a single fight, I mean 2 in the first, 3 in the second. You could definitely say that the second round was a 10-8, and possibly some of the wrestling dominance she had later in the fight could have been 10-8s as well. I mean, she landed some horrendous elbows. The round that you can absolutely not give a 10-8 is the fourth, because of the fact that Pena almost got an armbar finish. Every single other round was extremely dominant for Amanda Nunes. The only fighter that can truly beat her is Valentina Shevchenko. That's the only fight it seems like anybody even cares for Nunes. It's the only challenge that's going to get people excited about. So that's the fight I want to see next for Amanda Nunes. And as for Julianna Pena, I wouldn't mind seeing her fight Holly Holm. I think that's a logical fight. You know, she's going to be the number 1 contender, so Holly Holm is at number 3. They're both a bit older veterans of the game, so I would love to see that kind of fight. And then we go to the co-main event. Brandon Moreno becomes the interim champion as he defeats Kai Kara-France in the third round due to a body kick. That is something a lot of people did not expect. If Moreno was going to drop Kai, people would think it would have to be because of his hands, not because of his kicks. His kicks are sneaky. He picks up that lead high kick very quickly, but to go to the body repeatedly in the fight, he didn't do it once. It was a constant target of his whenever he got Kai moving. And the angle was a little bit different. It reminded me of TJ Dillashaw's body kicks, where he kind of comes upward with it. Not so much horizontally, but brings some vertical motion to that. And the reason why that's a difficult kind of kick to defend is because when you block your body with your arms, you create a barrier for a horizontal kick, but it leaves vertical space. That's why Moreno's kick was able to sneak its way in there and just dig into the liver. But for the majority of the fight, it honestly seemed like Kai was winning. Not a whole lot, it was a competitive one, very close, but it definitely seemed like Kai was starting to take over the fight. But I wonder what the scorecards were like. Whoa, that's interesting. So the judges were 1-1-1 with each other. One judge gave the first 2 rounds to Brandon Moreno, one of them gave both to Kai, and then one of them split the first and the second. I mean, it just shows how competitive that fight was. The third round was definitely starting to turn for Kai's favor until the body kick. And people make fun of that whole statement about, you know, bringing out the dog in yourself, but that's what Moreno practically did out there. He kind of did it in the first fight, and he did it here again, and Kai fell to it this time. First fight went to a third round decision. This one got finished before the third round was even over, but Kai looked way better than I've ever seen him before. patient but powerful, and winning the majority of the boxing exchanges, whereas Moreno seemed to want to kick more and try to take the fight to the ground more. But you can see that Kai's training for Askar Askarov really paid off for this one, as well as his additional wrestling training. He was hard to control for Moreno, and moving forward as Kai continuously gets better, you might not see this guy even get taken to the ground, man, and very few fighters can outstrike him. It's honestly been a treat to watch Kai Kara-France's progression throughout his career. He has changed so much since we saw him in The Ultimate Fighter. But man, it's Brandon Moreno's day, and we're going to be getting that fourth fight with Deiveson Figueiredo. I think Deiveson will win that one as well. Always the questions are going to be around that weight cut. The guy cut so much weight, even though he lowered his natural body weight, it's still a massive cut. So if that turns out all good, we might get another classic fight on our hands. And as for Kai Kara-France, you have to do the rematch with him and Pantoja. For those who don't know, they fought way back in The Ultimate Fighter, and Pantoja won a decision. Maybe things are going to be different today. If Pantoja cannot get this fight to the ground, I think Kai will take it, because you saw how crazy good Pantoja's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was tonight. But we'll get to that later. We have to see that rematch, and then we move to Derrik Lewis versus Sergei Pavlovich. I kind of already talked about the fight, and early stoppage, but not unreasonable. Seeing a big man like Derrik Lewis fall face first on the canvas, it's going to make any ref jump to stop it. And again, they rather stop fights early than late. Seeing the amount of damage that Derrik Lewis was taking and knowing Sergei's power, you can understand why Dan Miragliotta jumped in. I personally think that Sergei would have knocked him out regardless. So at the end of the day, does it really matter? I mean, it gives Derrik Lewis a chance, but look at the position that he was in. Eyes to the ground, standing straight up, no good posture. And Sergei's right above him to land more punches. I highly doubt that Derrik Lewis survives that. But that brawling exchange right in the beginning, I didn't expect to happen so fast. I thought they would feel it out a little bit more, but Sergei came in there with a jab and Derrik Lewis tried to counter it with a right hook. And that's what started the trading. Pride versus pride, they wanted to get the better of each other, and Sergei came out on top because of his speed advantage and his reach advantage. He was hitting Derrik Lewis where Lewis could not hit him, and Sergei was able to throw 2 punches when Lewis was only able to throw 1. Lewis also being technically inferior, he was at a complete disadvantage in that exchange. And man, it was a good win for Sergei Pavlovich, who's probably going to make his way into the top 5, and we continue to get young fighters to challenge each other at the top, which is always a great thing for the sport. It's good to move forward that way, as Lewis is kind of the gatekeeper for a lot of these young guys. Watch when he gets Romanov next. That'd be so unfair for him, but he should be fighting Jairzinho Rozenstruik next, and I would like to see Sergei versus Tom Aspinall. I don't know how long Aspinall is going to be out, but looking at the rankings, it seems like the most logical fight to put together. And then we go to Alexandre Pantoja versus Alex Perez, where Pantoja gets a quick rear naked choke finish. Only was able to get to 1 carotid artery, not 2 of them. That's a squeeze, man. It was almost like a neck crank, but he did get part of the neck as well. His transition to the back was so quick. He completely surprised me with the decision to brawl it out. Just came in there guns blazing, throwing shots, no technique at all. Got into Alex Perez's face until Pantoja got into the clinch, tried to land some knees, span around to the back and then redirected with an outside trip. Perez gave up his back and an instant back take from Pantoja, man. It reminds me a lot of like Charles Oliveira, of how fast he took that back. And from there, man, it was the beginning of the end. I mean, a minute submission win is insane. There's so much work that goes into this kind of thing, and Pantoja made it look very easy. For sure, he tried to make a point, because he has a win over Kai Kara-France and Brandon Moreno. So he went out to show there that he's one of the best flyweights in the world. Probably should be fighting for the belt next. But we have an interim champion now, which means that Pantoja should be fighting Kai Kara-France next, and that's going to be a good one. As for Alex Perez, a fight between him and Matthew Schnell makes a lot of sense. Matthew Schnell is number 8, coming off that huge comeback finish against Sumo Darji. And then we finally go to Magomed Ankalaev, TKOing Anthony Smith in the second round. Smith has some good straight rights, but really didn't have too much success in the fight. He ate some big leg kicks, partially blocked a big head kick, and Ankalaev is just so quick, man. Like that combination he threw about I think it was around 1 minute left of the first round. Smith went in with a big right hand to intercept Ankalaev, but Ankalaev actually moved out at the same time in the opposite direction, caused an overextension on the right hand and then tried to counter Smith with 2 right hooks which fell short. But he ultimately used the second one as a big step in for measurement of his left straight. Left straight lands, Smith is trying to move away, opening up the legs as you're leaning back. When you lean back, your legs are exposed. That's how Ankalaev was able to land a lightning quick leg kick. The guy is insane, man. He is so good. But the big thing that everybody's talking about is Anthony Smith injuring himself. Didn't seem too bad for the fact that he was still able to throw punches, he was able to attempt takedowns and stuff, actually put power into his punches too. So he was able to put weight on that leg without it giving out on him, which tells me that he might have just hyperextended it instead of tearing any ligaments. It'd be crazy to find out that Smith actually seriously injured his ankle, but going for the takedown was ultimately his demise. That should not have happened. Maybe he was just trying to make something work with what he had, being compromised in the fight, but trying to take down Ankalaev is never a smart move. His sambo skills are just way too high level for Smith to ever have success with that. And Smith ultimately abandoned the takedown and tried to pull guard and then just got finished after. These sambo guys are so good at posturing up over you, tripoding and stuff, and then landing huge ground and pound shots, man. You can hear the thudding of those punches that Ankalaev was landing. So what do you do with Ankalaev? It all depends on who Yuri is going to fight next. If Yuri gets a rematch with Glover, then do Jan Blachowicz versus Ankalaev for the #1 contender. If it's Jan that fights Yuri, then you do Glover versus Ankalaev. He needs to be fighting for the #1 contender spot next. And as for Anthony Smith, who's number 5 in the rankings, it's about time. You have to put it together. The rematch between him and Thiago Santos. They're right next to each other in the rankings. Everybody wants to see it, and man, that's going to be so fun to watch. And that's the end of the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the fights. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell. I possibly have a collab coming out pretty soon that I will announce.